Howdy, welcome to my shop. My name's Ron and I'll be your host for the next 10 minutes or so. Being a fourth generation carpenter, wood is that's my language. It's my living, it's my hobby, it's my passion. One of those passions is making stocks. I've never had any formal training in this. I just wanted to put a piece of wood on a gun one day, and I seemed like that'd be a pretty unique challenge, so I tried it, and been going at it ever since. But honestly, I owe a lot of my success to my customers, my friends that have suggested this or that, different ways of doing it to produce a better outcome. And so I appreciate them. I owe them a great deal. The finish that I use was suggested by a friend of mine that owns a gun shop in Georgia, a guy named Dan. I've been friends with him for many years, and I owe him for that knowledge. So I don't suggest that my way is the only way. That's just not the case. I picked up my abilities to do this from watching other people and seeing other things, and then figuring out how to do that. So it's a process. Some ways are better, cleaner, faster. They require less effort. On and on it goes. And I'm open to learning new and better ways. I'm always looking for that. My grandfather used to say, never let a day go by that you don't learn something. So when I do, I'll often look up, thanks, Pop, because no matter how old you get, you still need to be learning new things. So come on in, see what's going on today. Howdy. Today I'm going to start working on refinishing an old Winchester. Now this is not a Winchester factory stock. This was a custom made stock, probably made in the late 60s from the design of it. It looks a lot like a Weatherby type style with a grip and the large fore-end cap, things like that. It just reminds me of the late 60s type woodworking. And so I've already stripped it. I used some regular, what you can buy at Ace Hardware stripper, per the instructions, and I got the goo off of it. Now I'm going to start cleaning it up, and then we'll be sanding the dings out of it and refinishing it, and then I'll checker it, and then I'll put the last little bit of finish on after the checkering's done. So here we go. Now that the stripper is I'm finished with that section, I'm going to use lacquer thinner to clean off the stripper residue, because that was an oil-based stripper, and I'm going to use lacquer thinner because it'll remove the oiliness off of this stock. If you try to sand that real oily, greasy, it just clogs up your paper. Your sandpaper doesn't last but about 10 strokes, and it's just loaded up. So what I'm doing is using a lacquer thinner just to bathe it. I'm just giving it a real good wet bath with lacquer thinner. You can use acetone. Either one will remove grease and oil. If there's any residue left after that stripper, any finish, this lacquer thinner will loosen it, wash it right off. Now in the checking and in the little tight corners, I like to take an old toothbrush and cut the bristles down on it, maybe a half or a third of what they used to be. And by the way, all toothbrushes are not created equal. Some of them, lacquer thinner will just dissolve them, and some of them it won't. It's just the type of plastic that they use to make the bristles out of. If you have real stubborn areas, you can actually pour lacquer thinner or acetone into a container and just set the stock down in there. If you have places that are loaded up with oil and you got oil stains that have blackened the wood, you can just set it in acetone for a few hours, come back and then use a blow dryer or compressed air and dry that off, and get that out of there. This one doesn't have any real bad oil stains to it. Once I'm done with this lacquer thinner bath, I'll hang it up and let this lacquer thinner completely flash off. When I start to sand, I don't want any grease. I want as little grease as possible to sand off, because when you sand off grease, it's like trying to sand off bubble gum. It loads up your paper, and you'll run through more paper than you can buy if you run into real heavy oily surfaces. This stock has been used quite heavily. There's a lot of little dings and stuff on it. You can steam those dings out with a damp rag and a hot iron, and if it's been mashed, dinged, just pressed in, that hot iron and steam will puff up those fibers again. If it's been cut and scratched, then they don't steam out. Now, to get it out of the checkering, I'll take this toothbrush and scrub those checks, both directions of the checking. Try to get the rest of that stuff out of the checking. It tends to hold the finish and the oil a lot more than the flat part, the wood part of the gun. This is actually French checkering. It's a skip line checkering is what some people call it, and some people use the term French checkering, but we'll get into that when I start rechecking it. It's pretty on some guns. It's not for every gun. Alright, now let it dry. I'll be back. Alright, I've wiped this thing down with lacquer thinner. I've let it dry for a while. Lacquer thinner flashes off pretty quick, but an hour or two should take care of it. Now I've got a few dings that are pretty heavy, and if I sanded them out, then the stock starts getting pretty small. So I'm going to steam these out. I've got one that's right here and a little bitty one right behind it. I can hit both of them at the same time. I've got a hot iron, and you don't want to dwell too much. You want to check your work and see how it's going. You can already see it, or I can already see it puffing out. It's almost invisible. If you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't be able to tell it. I've got several folds in this washcloth to keep it from, you don't want to burn that wood. Burn marks go deep and they're hard to get out. If I burn this washcloth, so what? But I don't want to burn that stock. Actually, the more you get to looking, the more little tiny dings I see. The more I can get out with this steam, the less I have to concentrate on getting out with sandpaper. You can see the padding I've got on this stock to hold it. You do not want to skin up these top edges. They're little and they'll crush very easily. So I've got tapered blocks to make it fit my parallel vise jaws. Another thing I'm going to have to sand out is the joint between this end cap and the stock itself. They put a piece of burl walnut. It's darker than this, and because of years of drying, there's a little, you just have to sand across that with a real straight edge block, like you know, just a sanding block, because they will shrink at different rates, and this thing's been made for, you know, 50-60 years, and so one of them has shrunk a little more than the other one, or vice versa, and you end up having to even them up. You can actually hang your fingernail on that right there. So next is sanding. Now that I've raised all those skint places, now I'll start sanding. All right, let me stop right here and zoom in on this and show you something. This is what they call French checkering or skip line checkering. And what you do is you cut 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you skip a line, and it makes this big diamond. That's twice as big as these diamonds. So you skip 1, and you cut 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 5. They're cutting 5 and then skipping 1. So you get this big diamond here, here, here. Every 5th line you get a big diamond. And those big diamonds will shine. The surface of that large diamond is big enough to actually shine like the stock. The same finish that's going on the stock here is going to hit those big diamonds. The other little diamonds, little checks, there's really not enough flat on them to really shine. Sometimes there's been guns that they cut their checkering kind of light and they leave that top of that thing and it glitters like the sun on a windy day at the beach, and it just glitters off the top of those. Remington 720 did that on their new real shiny new stocks a few years ago, and it's a pretty cool effect. But anyway, the reason that I'm telling you this is because as I'm sanding the rest of this stock, I'm going to come along and just barely sand this checking so that I've hit the tops of those little diamonds, or those big diamonds, because they're going to have finish on them. They have enough flat surface to hold finish. So normally I wouldn't sand checking because you're just wearing it down. But in this case, I'm going to lightly sand it with 220. And that's about all it needs. I have to wait until the new butt pad comes in for this. I just ordered it today and it'll be 3 or 4 days before it comes in, so I'm just going to put this thing back on, hang it up by a wire. I just poke a wire in between that little gap right there and hang it up vertically, because I can't start finishing until I fit this pad to this shape. once I do that, and I may have to end up filling those holes because they may or may not fit the new pad. Or actually, this one is off center. You can look at this one and see how it's further that way than center. So this one's actually the same thing. This hole is this way of center. Interesting. Well, thanks for choosing to spend your time here with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this program. I'll try to post a new segment each weekend. In addition, if you'd like to read about a stock that I made and then it took a 20-foot free fall, click on the link at the bottom of this page. It's called The Broken Gun. It's a story I wrote a few years ago about my two boys. Sometimes life's hard and things get broken. Now and then we get a chance to fix them. I'm so grateful for the opportunity I had to repair this broken stock. It led to a restoration that I never could have imagined. As always, if you like this video, please click the like button and share this with your friends. Have a great day.